President Trump is strong or weak in Stoicism through meeting with President Zelensky. The test of strength. Trump, Zelensky, the power of the mind. Let me ask you something. When the weight of the world is on your shoulders, when people expect you to lead, to act, to decide, what do you control? Your power. Your reputation? The choices of others? You control one thing, your mind. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius knew this. He once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the kind of wisdom that transcends time. It's not just about emperors or philosophers. It's about presidents, world leaders, and, yes, you and me. Today, I want to talk about a moment in history, a meeting between two men, two leaders, two powerful figures. President Donald Trump. President Volodymyr Zelensky. A moment where Stoicism was tested, where strength was redefined. Some saw Trump as a mastermind, in control, unshaken. Others saw weakness, a man playing politics instead of leading with conviction. But who was really in control? What does strength even look like in a situation like this? I am a priest. My calling is to understand the human heart, to guide people through wisdom, faith, and truth. And today, we are going to take a hard look at this meeting, not just as politics, but as a test of the mind, the spirit, and the weight of leadership. Because the question isn't just about Trump, it's not just about Zelensky, it's about us. How do we handle the moments where power collides with principle? How do we lead when the world is watching? And most importantly, how do we find true strength? Let's begin. What is true strength? There's a common misconception about strength. Most people think strength is loud. They think it's about being the biggest, the most aggressive, the one who dominates the room, the one who wins. But history and faith tell us something different. Look at Jesus before Pilate. A man who could have commanded armies, yet stood silent. Was that weakness? Or was it the ultimate display of control? Look at Marcus Aurelius, a ruler who could have indulged in power, yet spent his life teaching that the greatest power was the mastery of the self. And then look at Trump sitting across from Zelensky in that moment of history. A leader of the most powerful nation in the world, a man who built his brand on winning, dominance, and control. But when the cameras were on him, when Zelensky was sitting across from him, was he truly in control? Because strength isn't about holding power, it's about how you use it. Trump's Stoic approach. If you listen carefully to Trump, you'll notice something. He rarely shows doubt. Whether you agree or disagree with his methods, there's one thing no one can deny. He acts like a man who believes in his own mind. And that, in a sense, is stoic. He doesn't let the media dictate his emotions. He doesn't let critics shake his confidence. He doesn't let the expectations of others define him. But here's where we must ask the hard question. Was this self-mastery? Or was it stubbornness? Because true strength is not just about controlling your mind. It's about knowing when to act and when to yield. Zelensky's position now, contrast this with Zelensky, a man leading a country that was, at the time, standing at the edge of war, at the edge of collapse. A comedian turned president, suddenly sitting across from the leader of the free world. Some say Zelensky showed humility, that he played his role carefully, knowing that his country's survival depended on diplomacy. Others say he was too careful, that he should have demanded more, that real strength would have been pushing back harder. But let me ask you something. What is harder, pushing back or holding your ground while knowing your fate is in another man's hands? What would you do if your people's future depended on the words of a man who could take everything away with a single decision? This moment, this meeting, was a test of strength. And the greatest tests of strength are not fought on battlefields, but in moments like these, where men must decide, will I act out of fear? Will I act out of ego? Or will I act with wisdom? This brings us to a deeper question. 2. The limits of control. There is a harsh reality that every leader, every person must face. You can control your mind, but you cannot control the world. This is where Stoicism and faith collide. Because Marcus Aurelius said, "Realize this, and you will find strength." But as a priest, I would add something more. Realize this, and you will find humility. Because control is an illusion. We do not hold the future in our hands. We do not command the universe. Trump understood the illusion of power. He wielded it like a businessman, treating diplomacy like a deal. Zelensky understood the fragility of power. He walked carefully, balancing between allies and enemies. But here's the truth. Trump could not control what the world thought of him. Zelensky could not control whether he got the support he needed. No one in that room had absolute power. And this is the great paradox of leadership. You must act as if you are in control, while knowing that you are not. Trump's mindset. Trump's entire persona is built on confidence. He knows that if you appear uncertain, you've already lost. He projects power because that is the game he plays. And in that meeting, he did what he always does. He controlled the narrative. He spoke in absolutes. He avoided concessions. He remained unshaken. But is that real control? Or is it the kind of control that requires constant defense, constant maintenance? Because a man who always has to prove he's in control, is he truly in control at all? Zelensky's response. Then there's Zelensky, a man who does not have the luxury of pretending. His country was under threat. His position was delicate. He knew he had to play his part carefully. Some saw this as submission. Others saw it as strategy. But here's the thing. There is a kind of strength that does not shout, that does not boast, that does not threaten. The strength of a man who knows his limits, but refuses to be broken by them. And that strength, the strength of accepting what is beyond your control while standing firm in what is within you. That is the strength that Marcus Aurelius was talking about. That is the strength that Jesus showed before Pilate. That is the strength that every great leader must master. Because the truth is, you cannot control what happens to you. You cannot control the choices of others. But you can control how you respond, and that is where real strength begins. 3. The role of fate, divine providence. What do you believe in? Fate? Destiny? The will of God. Every leader wrestles with this question, whether they acknowledge it or not, because at the highest levels of power, there comes a moment where even the strongest man realizes some things are simply beyond his control. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, believed in fate, that everything unfolds according to a natural order, and that a wise man must accept his fate without resistance. But as a priest, I see something deeper than fate, because fate is cold. It simply happens. But divine providence, the will of God, is purposeful. This is where Stoicism and faith collide. Trump often speaks as a man who believes in his own destiny. He has said before, everything happens for a reason. He has spoken about America's destiny, his own role in history, and how he believes in winning because he sees himself as someone meant to win. Zelensky, on the other hand, stands as a man placed into history by forces beyond his control. A man who, by his own admission, never expected to be where he is. So let's ask the question. Did these two men see their meeting as fate, something inevitable? Or did they see it as a moment of divine testing, a crossroads where choices matter? Trump's faith. Pragmatism. Donald Trump has been described in many ways: strong, aggressive, bold, strategic. But one thing is certain: he does not leave things to fate. He believes in action. He believes in deals, power, and negotiation. He believes in controlling outcomes, not waiting for them. This is not a Stoic approach, and it is not a faith-based approach, because a Stoic accepts what is beyond his control, and a man of faith trusts in a power higher than himself. Trump's strength is in his willpower, his belief that he alone determines his fate. But here's the question: what happens when the will of a man collides with forces greater than himself? What happens when he can't negotiate his way out? This is where every leader is humbled. And in that meeting with Zelensky, Trump had to decide: would he continue to believe that he was the master of the game? Or would he recognize that some things demand something greater than strategy? They demand wisdom. Zelensky's faith leadership. Now, contrast that with Zelensky, a man who in many ways did not choose power. It fell on him. A man who, by background, should not have been a politician. Yet, here he was, sitting across from Trump, needing something from a man he could not control. Some saw Zelensky as a man caught in history's current, a leader in the wrong place at the wrong time. But others saw something else. They saw a man who stepped into his moment. Because sometimes the greatest leaders are not those who seek power, but those who rise to it when called. Think of Moses, standing before Pharaoh, uncertain but obedient. Think of David, a shepherd boy who faced Goliath not because he sought glory, but because the moment demanded courage. Zelensky sat there, not as a master of fate, but as a man who had to trust in something beyond himself. The question is, did Trump recognize that same reality? Because there are moments in history where power alone will not save you. Only wisdom will, and that brings us to the greatest burden of leadership. Fee. The moral weight of decisions. This is the part no one likes to talk about. The moral weight of being a leader. Because every decision has a cost, and every choice defines not just your legacy, but your soul. Jesus once said, "What does it profit a man to gain the whole world, but lose his soul?" Power without principle is dangerous, and decisions made without moral clarity lead to destruction. So let's look at this moment, this meeting, not as politicians, not as journalists, but as human beings seeking truth. Trump's controversial strength. Many say Trump's strength is his fearlessness. He does not back down. He does not apologize. He does not hesitate to use power to his advantage, and there is wisdom in that, because a weak leader is a dangerous leader. But here's where we must ask a harder question. Was his decision to withhold military aid from Ukraine a sign of strength? Or was it a failure of moral responsibility? Did he see Zelensky as a man in need or as a bargaining chip? Because a Stoic leader, one who follows Marcus Aurelius's wisdom, would say, lead with justice, not with self-interest. But Trump is not a Stoic leader. He is a pragmatist. A deal-maker. His decision was strategic. But was it just? And here's the danger. When you prioritize winning over wisdom, you may win battles, but you lose something greater. This is why history remembers not just the victories of leaders, but their moral failures. Zelensky's dilemma. Now, let's step into Zelensky's shoes. Imagine sitting across from the most powerful man in the world, knowing that your country's survival depends on his decision. Do you challenge him and risk everything? Do you stay silent and hope for the best? Or do you navigate the conversation carefully, knowing that one wrong word could mean the end of your nation's support? This is what moral leadership looks like, because true strength is not just in action, but in restraint. Moses had to stand before Pharaoh. Jesus had to stand before Pilate. Zelensky had to sit before Trump. And in that moment, his choice was not just about diplomacy. It was about his character. Because every leader must ask themselves, am I leading for power? Or am I leading for something greater than myself? And this is the question that every single one of us must ask too. Because leadership is not just for politicians. It is for parents leading their children, teachers guiding students, business leaders shaping companies, individuals making daily choices about integrity. Every decision carries weight. And the moment you forget that, you begin to lose your soul. So as we move forward, I leave you with this. True strength is not in controlling others. It is in mastering yourself. And the greatest leaders are not those who seek power, but those who seek truth. In the next section, we will ask the final, most important question. What does this mean for us today? Let's continue. V. The modern meaning of strength. We've looked at Trump. We've looked at Zelensky. We've examined their meeting through the lens of Stoicism, faith, leadership, and morality. But now, I want to turn the focus to you. Because this isn't just about politics. It's not just about history. This is about what strength means in our lives today. Because whether you realize it or not, you are being tested. Every single day. At work, when you must choose between integrity and opportunity. At home, when you must decide between patience and anger. In friendships, when you must choose between truth and comfort. The battle for true strength is happening inside you, just as it happened in that meeting room between two world leaders. And the question is, what kind of strength are you living by? 1. The illusion of power. Modern society has taught us that strength is about dominance. The strongest person is the one with the most money. The strongest person is the one with the loudest voice. The strongest person is the one who wins at all costs. That is the illusion of power. Because real power is not in force. It is in restraint. Think about this. Who is stronger? The man who explodes in anger, or the man who controls his emotions? Who is stronger? The leader who crushes his opponents, or the leader who wins them over with wisdom? Who is stronger? The person who fights every battle, or the person who chooses their battles wisely? Trump believed strength was in assertion, in being unmoved, in control, a master of the deal. Zelensky had to show a different kind of strength, one of endurance, of patience, of navigating the impossible. And that's the choice we all face. Do we chase the strength of the world? Or do we seek the strength of the soul? 2. Leadership in our lives. You may not be the leader of a nation, but you are a leader somewhere. A leader in your family, a leader in your community, a leader in your personal life, making decisions that shape who you are. And the truth is, leadership is not about power. It is about responsibility. Many people want control, but few want the burden of wisdom. But a real leader asks, what is right? Not just what is profitable, what is just. Not just what is convenient, what serves the greater good, not just what benefits me. Trump's leadership was marked by pragmatism. He focused on what benefited his position. Zelensky's leadership was marked by necessity. He had to lead with a sense of survival. But you have a choice. You can lead your life in wisdom. You can choose to cultivate inner mastery over chasing external control. That is the kind of strength that lasts. 3. The greatest strength of all. In the end, we return to the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is a radical truth, because most people spend their lives trying to control things they cannot, the opinions of others, the outcomes of situations, the future. But the strongest people, the truly great leaders, understand, you cannot control what happens to you. but you can control how you respond. You cannot control what people say about you. But you can control how you live. You cannot control the storms of life, but you can control the anchor of your soul. That is true power. That is real strength. And that is what separates the wise from the foolish, the great from the forgotten. Conclusion. The final test of strength. We've walked through history. We've examined two leaders. We've explored the wisdom of a Roman emperor and the guidance of faith. But now, we come to you. Because in the end, this is not just about Trump or Zelensky. This is about the kind of person you choose to be. Let's go back to Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled Rome at the height of its power, a man who could have crushed his enemies without consequence, a man who had every luxury, every resource, every tool of control at his disposal. And yet, what did he say? You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The world will always test you. People will betray you. Circumstances will challenge you. Your plans will fall apart. That is guaranteed. But what matters, what truly defines you, is how you respond. The ultimate question. When you look at your own life, ask yourself, are you reacting to everything? Or are you choosing your responses wisely? Are you trying to control others? Or are you mastering yourself? Are you chasing power? Or are you pursuing wisdom? Because let me tell you something. Real power is fleeting. Leaders rise and fall. Nations come and go. Even the strongest empires crumble, but character remains. Integrity lasts. The strength of the mind and soul will outlive everything else. And that is the lesson. What can we learn from Trump and Zelensky? From Trump, we learn the power of unshaken confidence, but also the danger of mistaking control for strength. From Zelensky, we learn the weight of leadership under pressure, but also the challenge of leading when you are at the mercy of greater forces. From Marcus Aurelius, we learn that true power does not come from external victories, but from mastering the one thing no one can take away, your mind. Your final takeaway. If you take nothing else from this, remember this. You will never control everything around you, but you can always control yourself. And in that, there is strength beyond measure. So choose wisely, because your strength is not tested when things are easy. Your strength is tested when the world tries to break you. And in that moment, you must decide, will I be controlled by the world, or will I master myself? That is the final test. That is true strength. And that, my friends, is the greatest lesson of all. Final words. If this message resonated with you, share it. If it challenged you, reflect on it. And if you seek true strength, keep seeking wisdom. Because in the end, it is not power that makes a man great. It is the mastery of his mind, his character, and his soul. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and lead well.